One of the reoccurring trends I've noticed when it comes to a lot of the criticism towards Pokemon Legends ZA is that it's not coming from Pokemon fans. It's not coming from people who buy and play these games. It's not coming from people in the community. It's not coming from people like who actually know what they're talking about. It is coming from people who have not played Pokemon games in years, who constantly misrepresent the franchise, who lie about it constantly, who keep pretending that these games have had some like massive dip in quality over the years. It is laughable seeing someone like RGT85 try and sit there and tell you that the Pokemon Company they can do better. Like it's just completely out of touch, ridiculous, and absurd. They don't seem to understand that what Pokemon is doing works. That people like the games, that they like the brand, that they like Pokemon Legends ZA. The simple fact of the matter is that these people are genuinely believe that people are only consuming these products out of blind loyalty and consumerism as opposed to the simple fact that this is a game I'm probably going to put 40, 50, 60 hours into like consistently, right? Like I cannot tell you like I don't believe there's a single video game IP that I've consistently put this much time into over the years than Pokemon because this formula works. Like it is the single greatest video game formula ever conceived. It is endlessly entertaining, it is endlessly replayable, it is enj- endlessly enjoyable. Like and with games like Pokemon Legends ZA, we can see how that formula can evolve and change into something completely unique and distinct. It is very 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 difficult to for the pretendos to wrap their heads around the fact that people genuinely enjoy Pokemon because all they can do is sit there and whine about like my graphics, my gameplay loop, like not good enough instead of just accepting that the game is good, like there's a reason these people have to like whine about the graphics so much because if you take away the whole graphics discussion, they really don't have a leg to stand down. And honestly, the more people look into Pokemon Legends EA and look at like how tightly the budget is and how well made these games actually are. Like, what exactly are you complaining about? Because Pokemon Legends EA, I think, has proven that the low budget, uh, controlled development cycle of Pokemon is far better than something like Grand Theft Auto 6, which takes 12 years to make and will be an abject disappointment. Pokemon's formula, of putting out like Pokemon X and Y, Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield, Scarlet and Violet, like and then Gen 10, that is a more reasonable development cycle than Grand Theft Auto 6. And this is something that a lot of people really can't wrap their minds around because a lot of them only buy video games based on graphics. They buy them based on hype. They buy them based on this idea that this is some new innovative thing that is an evolution of what came before. And although that's true for Pokemon, for the gaming community, like at large, all they care about is the graphics. All they care about is the presentation. All they care about is just superficial things that don't really matter all that much. And this is the reoccurring thing if you watch like, beat 'em ups or RGT 85 or the likes of those guys. They'll sit there and complain about like the shape of the windows or the textures or like things like that when nobody really cares about that at all. Like it's kind of interesting kind of seeing so many people complain about the graphics because I'm playing this game and I think it looks gorgeous. The character models are nice. I love the Pokemon. Like it's a really fleshed out, interesting, like engaging, immersive experience. And yet these guys want to sit there and complain about it like for superficial reasons. And it really needs to be called out for what it is that it is co- completely absurd that people are so obsessed with visuals, because they don't really take into consideration like other things about the Pokemon IP, the unique vibe, the mood, the setting, like the Pokemon themselves, things that like other developers, no matter how hard they may try, Power World, Power World. But like, no matter how hard they try to rip it off, can't really replicate, you know. And honestly, they can't even really imitate it either because Pokemon is so very specific in what it does. And what it does is so popular and so successful that these games still continue to succeed even after all this time. But like my mindset though, when like looking at this and studying it, like I feel like we should be celebrating Pokemon successes. We should be celebrating their business models. We should be celebrating their design philosophies. We should be celebrating this because this is exactly what people are demanding from AAA studios to produce unique titles on a lower budget, right? Like you don't need cutting edge visuals to create an entertaining product. Like this is something we've known for years. Like, but with Pokemon, you're seeing this weird mindset among the community that like somehow the way they do things is like unacceptable when in reality it's quite a bit better than the alternative. Like I would much prefer like the way Pokemon handles its story progression and its characters than something like say The Last of Us, you know, like that thing where you just kind of have an NPC and you're walking down a hallway and you're talking about something that nobody cares about. Like nobody cares. Okay. Like I would rather play a video game. And Pokemon does that far better. You know, Pokemon like again this is my issue with the Pokemon hate and something that needs to be brought up is that like why exactly are people treating the Pokemon IP like it's generic? Because this is the thing with Power World, where people like do this thing where they're just like, "Oh, it's an evolution. It's better. It's such a great game," and like you know they completely ignore like the game plays like trash. It has no content. That it's just the same thing over and over again. That Power World is just this lazy rehash thing, you know, and like the simple fact of the matter is like we've gotten new Pokemon products since Pokemon Power World has come out. So like there's been no consideration given to as to like whether like the new Pokemon is better than Power World, or if it compete, or if it can compete. You know, like the reality is, like Pretendo's made up their mind about Power World immediately. You know, just like they made up their mind about Temtem immediately, right? They think that Pokemon is like some video game IP that's behind the times, that it's not doing very well, that it's lagging behind the competition, and that like all of these other like random monster collector RPGs are just better. And yet, like, none of them seem to blow up. None of them seem to become relevant. None of them seem to be competitive. You know, Power World was like the biggest example of that in recent memory. And that was a straight up knockoff of the Pokemon brand that straight up stole models and rip mechanics from these games, which Nintendo is demonstrating through their patent infringement lawsuit. So, like, yeah, Power World is straight up getting taken down due to plagiarism, and the community is doing its best to rally behind Power World, which is one of the most ludicrous things we have ever seen in this community. Like for me, and I do think like this does need to be said, like a certain segment of the community is determined to hate Pokemon no matter what. You know, I have seen this happen time and time again for decades. The obsession with hating Pokemon like can be traced back to the 90s. You know, people just really relentlessly, obsessively just hated everything that the brand did back in the day. And like that never really went away. It's just such a weird like subculture of the gaming community where they're so salty about Pokemon's continued success and relevancy and Nintendo's involvement with it that they will fight to keep downplaying the IP no matter what. And that is what we're seeing right here is that people cannot handle Pokemon being bigger than their favorite thing.